Penguin Random House Audio presents The Caretaker, a novel, by Ron Rash, read for you by James Patrick Cronin. That world that opens up before you when a new sorrow enters your heart, or you are shaken by profound music, or when you see the miracle of the emerging new day, then you know that we are strangers on this earth. Martin A. Hansen, The Liar. Part 1. Chapter 1. Jacob was on guard duty, posted beside a river that separated the two armies. The night was colder than any he'd experienced back in Watauga County. This cold did more than seep into his skin. It encased fingers and feet in iron, made teeth rattle like glass about to break. No layering of wool and cotton beneath the pile-lined parka allayed it. For weeks, Jacob had kept waiting for the cold to lift. Now it was March, but this place observed no calendar. The river was still frozen. Jacob envisioned ice all the way to the bottom. No current, fish stalled as if mounted. The river had a name, but Jacob didn't allow it to lodge in his memory. Since stepping onto the pier in Poussin, his goal had been to forget, not remember. At Fort Polk, he'd heard all manner of stories about what awaited him in Korea. Much of it was horse crap. The NK ate rats and snakes raw, could see in the dark like cats. But some stories were true, including how they would crawl into an outpost, slit a soldier's throat, then recede into the night. Even if you were on the opposite side of a river, they'd come across and kill only one man when they might have killed 3 or 4. They were leaving a message. We're saving you for next time. Though the river was frozen, Jacob knew that didn't matter. 2 nights earlier, a North Korean had decapitated another unit's sentry. Crawled over the ice to do it. Jacob scanned the flat, soundless snowscape before him. At least the moon was full tonight. A hunter's moon, they called it back home. It silvered the crystals atop the river. If not wary of an enemy's knife, Jacob would have taken time to marvel at such shimmering beauty. But even this small moment must be blocked. Jacob wanted Korea to be a house entered and then left, the door locked forever. He just had to survive. 12 days ago, for the first time, his unit had been in a fight. Aubert, a Cajun from Louisiana, had been shot in the leg. The bullet shattered his kneecap, and the medic said he'd need a cane the rest of his life. That was fine, Aubert answered. He'd get home alive to his wife and children, and finally be warm. Getting home was what mattered. According to Naomi's last letter, Dr. Egan said the baby would come in May. That thought was the talisman Jacob carried with him. He could not die. God or fate, something destined him and Naomi to have a life together. How else to explain that evening 20 months ago in Blowing Rock? At the exact moment he passed the Yonalasi Theater, Naomi, a complete stranger, had been standing beside the ticket booth, coin in hand. If he'd looked up at the marquee, or if a friend had called from farther up the sidewalk, Jacob would never have noticed her. She'd worn no earrings or bobby socks, no bright bows or bracelets like the other girls he knew. But such adornment would only distract from her face. The smooth skin and high cheekbones, striking blue eyes and long black hair. Love at first sight. But her prettiness was only part of what had held him there. As others went inside, Naomi rubbed a dime between her index finger and thumb, looking at the poster and then at the dime as people walked past her without a worry about the price. So much in that instant was set into motion, including a shared life that ensured Jacob's safe return. Even Naomi being in Blowing Rock that July evening was little short of miraculous. Naomi's brother-in-law just happening to buy a copy of the Nashville Tennessean and noticing the ad. Seasonal hotel maids needed. The Green Park Inn. Blowing Rock, North Carolina. Hadn't that been fate, too? Many soldiers brought something from home to help protect themselves. A rabbit's foot, a lucky coin, a playing card. So why not a belief? Yet last week, Doherty, despite 2 crucifixes and a matchbox filled with 4-leaf clovers, had stepped on a mine and been killed. So Jacob's eyes did not leave the frozen river, his ears listening for the rub of cloth on ice, a scrape of fingernails. Most nights the wind howled across this hard country, but tonight, a rare, disquieting silence. The rest of the unit was encamped 50 yards behind him, the Chosenia trees muffling snores and dream mutterings. Did the North Koreans ever sleep? Perhaps all they did was wait until you did. The silence was palpable as the cold. Villagers believed the ghosts of dead Americans wandered these mountains. Guisin, they called them. Most men laughed at the notion, but because of where he'd grown up, Jacob could not. He wished he could smoke, but the flare of a match or the glow of the lit tip might end your life. For an hour, Jacob had barely moved. A slight shift of his rifle, a slow turn of his head, but nothing more, as Sergeant Abrams advised. His fingers searched for the pack of gum in his parka pocket until remembering he'd given it to a villager's child 2 days ago. Jacob again looked up. Only the moon, not a single star. He had the sensation that both armies had quietly withdrawn, leaving him alone beside this frozen river. Then, as if to signal otherwise, a movement on the opposite side of the ice. Jacob shifted his rifle, laid his gloved finger inside the trigger guard. He watched the far bank, the iced-over shallows. Nothing moved. After hours of guard duty, a soldier easily imagined things, could even hallucinate. Wind became whispers, shadows thickened into flesh. Jacob resettled his finger on the stock. On guard duty, the only thing worse than being alone was the fear that you weren't. Sentries had different ways to deal with that fear. What works for me is I tell myself that I'm not a man but a tree, and my heart is inside the first ring in the trunk's center. Sergeant Abrams had told them. If you stay rooted, they'll look straight at you and see only a tree. They can walk right past and still not know. Jacob imagined his and Naomi's farmhouse encircling him, beams and scaffolding first, then walls and floors and windows, roof and porch. Every nail and plank in its proper place, with Jacob in the center. Heartwood, Sawyers called centerwood, and that was what protected him. Jacob's eyes swept left to right. Back in North Carolina, he'd seen good-sized creeks called with ice, but never a whole river. As he'd written Naomi, he hadn't known what cold was until he'd come here. Or loneliness. He thought again of their starting a family. Naomi wouldn't be 18 until May. Although her sister, Lila, had her first child at 17, it still worried him. His parents could have helped. For a year after the elopement, he and Naomi had proven they could make a good life without any support from them. They'd saved enough money that when Dr. Egan said Naomi should no longer be lifting heavy objects, they could afford for her to quit the hospital laundry job. Then, in December, with Naomi 4 months pregnant, the conscription notice came. You swore you'd never come near this house again, his father had said as Jacob stood on the porch. His mother's footsteps echoed in the hallway. His father's hand remained on the knob, but he opened the front door wider so she saw who it was. On the mantel behind his parents was the prom photograph of Jacob and Veronica Weaver, the sole picture of him that hadn't been removed. Spiteful, but also as if to declare nothing could change unless his parents allowed it. I know things haven't been good between us, but I want it to be different. We told you how you could do that, his father answered, and you chose not to. You're still my parents, and I'm your son, and soon enough you'll have a grandchild. His father's features altered into the cold smile of confirmation Jacob had known all of his life. So this is about your inheritance. No, sir, it's not about that. What then? His mother asked. He hesitated, prepared himself for what would have to come first, the chiding certainty that if Jacob had only listened to them. But Jacob already saw in his mother's face another kind of confirmation that whatever Jacob was about to tell them would be bad. I've been conscripted. His father's hand slipped free of the doorknob. He appeared neither gloating nor aggrieved, but stricken. His mother shook her head, kept on shaking it as she spoke. Aren't 2 children enough to have lost? His mother implored, voice breaking as her arm gestured toward the cemetery where stones marked Jacob's sisters' graves. I will not hear this, she said, raising an open palm in front of her face. I will not. She walked down the hallway to their bedroom and closed the door.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?